Gotta see the title, man.
From the dawn of NBA history, the league has primarily been dominated by its biggest players. And while there have been some very few exceptions along the way, primarily the power players patrolling the front court have been the league's greatest players. As the first dynastic team rose to prominence in 1950, when the Minneapolis Lakers, led by center George Mikan, won 5 championships in a 6-year span. Then, in 1957...
That's where the Mikan drill came from as well, right? He's the one that made the Mikan drill.
The greatest dynasty in basketball history began, with center Bill Russell leading the Boston Celtics to 11 championships over the next 13 seasons, while battling his arch nemesis, center Wilt Chamberlain, along the way. The two would combine for 9 league MVPs in an 11-year span. And just as Russell retired in 1969, later that year, the Milwaukee Bucks would draft the NBA's next great big out of UCLA with the first overall pick in the draft, center Ferdinand Louis Alcindor Jr., who would go on to be known as...
I forgot he changed his name. Or that's not the first time I heard that, but
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, while winning 6 league MVPs, the most in NBA history, and going to 10 NBA Finals, winning 6 championships. Then, of course, the 90s ushered in the golden era of the big man, with Shaquille O'Neal, David Robinson, and Patrick Ewing all rising to prominence in the late 80s through mid-90s. But what if I were to tell you that there was one guy right in the middle of it all that was arguably better than them all, even if he was only a dream? In the famed 1984 draft that produced the greatest player of all time, Michael Jordan, the NBA's all-time leader in assists and steals in John Stockton, as well as 11-time All-Star and 10-time All-NBA member Charles Barkley,
that's a tough draft class. I can't lie.
Be Hakeem Olajuwon, who was a member Charles Barkley.
Why it just says Hakeem? Did they mess it up? Did they mess his name up, or is that?
Would be Hakeem Olajuwon,
so let me know in the comments.
Who was drafted number 1 overall. And while Hakeem is certainly not the most decorated or statistically accomplished big in NBA history, when understanding the context of his career, the competition he faced, and the supporting cast he had around him, coupled with Olajuwon's own production, you can make a viable case that he's the best big in NBA history. And ultimately, how does one quantify or define the best? Clearly, Hakeem is not the most accomplished, as Kareem won 6 finals and 6...
Okay, he about to get into that best. He about to show y'all the difference between being a better player and a greater player, you know? You know what I'm saying? There's a big difference in my opinion.
But taking a closer look at those NBA Finals, Kareem won 1 title in Milwaukee with Oscar Robertson, and then 5 titles in LA with Magic Johnson. Bill Russell played with 4 of the top 50 players of all time, including the great Bob Cousy, while Shaq won 3 of his championships with the legendary Kobe Bryant, and his 4th ring with another top 5 all-time positional guard, Dwayne Wade. Even Wilt Chamberlain had teammates selected to an All-Star game 24 times between the years of 1960 and 1973. These all-time great bigs played not just with good players, not even with great players. They played with the greatest players of all time, with many of these bigs fortunate enough to play with some of the very few of the greatest guards who have ever lived. Hakeem did not have that kind of luck, and unlike the best players of this current generation, he was unwilling to go full-blown mercenary mode and team jump in his prime. Olajuwon played with Ralph Sampson, who made an All-Star team the first 3 seasons Hakeem was in the NBA. Sampson even made a second-team All-NBA selection in Hakeem's rookie season of 1984-85.
They used to call them the Twin Towers, right? You know what I'm saying? I remember when Ralph Sampson got into it with one of the Celtic players. He was throwing them bitches too. Then the next game, that was crazy. That was crazy. I guess that's where the Celtics get their reputation from, man. Or shout out to you for remembering that reaction.
Was the only time in Olajuwon's entire 15-year career that he played with a teammate that was selected to an All-NBA team, and it came in just his first season. Along with Sampson, however, Hakeem would get to the NBA Finals in just his second year in the NBA at the age of 23. And Olajuwon went right through the famed 80s LA Lakers in the Western Conference Finals that year, averaging 27 points and 12 rebounds per game on 53% shooting for the entire playoff run. But in the finals, young Hakeem would run up against one of the greatest teams ever assembled.
So this is
1986 Boston.
I think this is the series that happened too.
Celtics, led by league MVP Larry Bird that year, one of the 5 Hall of Famers on that team that won 67 games that season and lost 1 total home game. The future, though, seemed bright with this Twin Towers tandem of Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson. Well, that bright future got cloudy quickly, as the next season, Ralph Sampson was plagued with injury and would miss over 40 games. It would also be his final season in Houston. And over the next 8 years, during Hakeem's absolute prime seasons, aged 25 to 32, he would play exactly 1 year with one All-Star, and that was Otis Thorpe in the 1991-92 season. It was Thorpe's one and only fluke All-Star appearance in his entire 19-year career. That was the best player prime Hakeem Olajuwon got to play with. But finally, the Rockets acquired Clyde Drexler at the trade deadline in 1994-95, with 34 games remaining in that NBA season. And in the 1996-97 season, Hakeem hit the mother load when Charles Barkley joined him and Drexler in Houston. And all 3 of them made the All-Star team that year. Can you say super team? Well, not quite. Barkley was in his 13th season, Drexler was in his 14th season, and Hakeem was in year 13, with all 3 players in their mid-30s at the time and outside of their primes. A far cry from the prime pairings of elite players we have seen in this most recent super team era. That Houston team was also hampered with injuries, with Drexler missing 20 games that year and Barkley missing 30. Yet the Rockets still won 57 games that season and actually went all the way to the Western Conference Finals, where they ran up against the 64-win Utah Jazz with that season's league MVP Karl Malone. Even in defeat against the league MVP, Hakeem was the best player in that series, averaging 27 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 steals per game on 59% shooting. But the Jazz would win it in 6 and roll all the way into the NBA Finals before running into this guy. And after finally getting a good collection of players around him for the first time in his career, unfortunately, that year would be the last of Hakeem Olajuwon, as he would miss nearly 40 games the following season following a knee surgery. And while Hakeem would limp around the league literally until the age of 39, in all, he started only 215 of a possible 378 games in those final 5 seasons, as his statistics and efficiency fell off of a cliff.
Hold on, y'all. I'm
but
back, yeah.
in
My
his
fault, my
prime, a prime squander,
I'ma cut it
playing
out.
with no other all-star caliber players, Hakeem was still selected to 12 All-NBA teams, is 12th on the all-time scoring list, 14th all-time in rebounds, and first all-time in blocks. He also produced arguably the best playoff run in NBA history, beginning with the 1993-94 season, where he was first team All-NBA, first team All-NBA defense, league MVP, defensive player of the year, won the championship, and was named finals MVP. The list of players to do that in one season includes no one. In the playoffs that year, he beat
Yo, the clips he be playing sometimes do be funny though. You talking about some...
No one. In the playoffs that year, he beat the 47-win Portland Trailblazers in the first round, led by Clyde Drexler. In the second round, he beat the 56-win Phoenix Suns, led by Charles Barkley. And in the Western Conference Finals, it was the Stockton and Malone Utah Jazz before getting to the Patrick Ewing Knicks in the finals. Houston's second best player on this team was Otis Thorpe, who averaged 14 points per game in the regular season. And their second leading scorer in the playoffs for that run was Vernon Maxwell, who averaged just under 14 points per game. Thorpe and Maxwell combined in 35 cumulative years played in the NBA made a total of 1 All-Star game. This is one of the most ludicrous playoff runs ever when factoring in competition and the supporting cast. And after winning only 47 games the following season and finishing as just the 6th seed in the Western Conference playoffs, Hakeem would go full-on legend in the 1995 playoffs, beating the 60-win Stockton and 2-time league MVP Karl Malone Utah Jazz in the first round. The first round, a 60-win opponent. In the second round, it was the 59-win former MVP Charles Barkley-led Suns. Then in the Western Conference Finals, it was the 62-win San Antonio Spurs, led by that season's league MVP David Robinson. Then, waiting for Hakeem in the NBA Finals would be future league MVP Shaquille O'Neal and the Penny Hardaway Orlando Magic, a team that actually beat Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls, as Jordan returned with 17 games left in the regular season before heading into the playoffs that season and falling in 6 games to the Magic in the East semifinals. But Hakeem would then dominate that Magic team and Shaquille O'Neal in the NBA Finals, sweeping them 4 games.
This is what y'all be talking about when y'all said Hakeem was cooking these centers with over
4 rounds,
Shaq.
4 league MVPs, and a collective winning percentage.
Dave Robson too, y'all said too.
Of his 4 opponents of 73%, the highest faced by any champion by far in NBA history. For a guy who had such a legendary offensive repertoire that one of the best scorers in NBA history consulted him for advice on footwork and post moves. A guy who was also one of the best defensive bigs of all time, winning defensive player of the year.
Let me say, I gave him some time, make sure he got to it. But if he ain't say that, I was gonna say it.
Twice. A guy who beat the 80s Lakers in just his second season, went toe-to-toe with arguably the best team ever and took them 6 games, and a guy who ran through a series of MVPs and elite all-time Hall of Famers en route to back-to-back titles while playing with no other All-Stars. Just imagine if that guy had Kobe Bryant for 8 years, Magic Johnson for a decade, or Dwayne Wade, Jerry West, or Bob Cousy. How many titles could he have won surrounded by players like that? What then would his legacy look like? One could only dream of the possibilities.
Sheesh. Let me know what y'all think about this one in the comments, man. Turn on post notifications. Like the video, comment, subscribe. I know the the Hakeem Olajuwon guy, he gonna like this video. I always see him, bro, in the comments all day. He be debating all y'all. Yeah, man. Let me know how y'all feel. Share the video with your peoples. Click on the last reaction right there. And I'm out of here, man.